There is a familiar complaint raised against religion today in saying that religious practices and beliefs can sometimes be distinctively cringe. And of course, we can sympathize with certain spectators of religion when they happen to take peerings from outside into what takes place within church walls and experiencing this kind of inner repulsion. We can perhaps see this especially in instances where church services have arena-like qualities, seen in this sort of eerie game of telephone that takes place between pastor and congregant that kind of gives one this sort of stench of ideological grooming taking place. Now, at least as to the idle spectator and viewer of religion, one who is looking from without to within, this procedure might very well seem cringeworthy. Since Soren Kierkegaard, himself a Christian theologian in the 19th century, he provided the criticism against such worldly instances of religion by saying that their offenses reside somewhere between childishness and crime. And so what I think is important to keep in mind is that the problem of religion is not a specifically modern problem, just as it is neither a medieval or ancient one. It is a problem which has scores throughout all time, and thus is an eternal problem, regardless of one's own generational placement. Now, insofar as I'm going to address the question, is religion cringe, I want to be clear that I'm going to be answering it from a Christian perspective, although I really am speaking quite more broadly from other principles that relate to true religion proper. So first and foremost, the fact of our eternal predicament is to see religion, if anything, and if possible, as a conduct of God. And as a conduct of God, who disposes all things kindly, desires furthermore to put religion, as Pascal said, into the mind by reason and into the heart by grace. However, whenever religion is introduced into the individual life apart from that context, such as introduced instead either by force or by threat, it is not religion which is introduced into the mind or the heart, but instead terror. And it is here precisely where I would categorize cringe-worthy religion as resting alongside bad religion. Simply put, in the words of C.S. Lewis, bad men are bad, but religious bad men are worse. And so there indeed has unfortunately ensued a kind of tyrannical religion, which has resulted today from this activity of theological terrorizing that has taken place in some churches. Indeed, such a religion does become cringe because it is a religion obtained from without, even though it was intended initially to be a religion received from within, into the mind by reason and into the heart by grace. But furthermore, it can be recognized from the outset that, provided all things considered, religion, so-called organized religion, is really not all that organized. If anything, religion is actually quite disorganized. Since if at any point you should wish to have even a moment's grasp of it, true religion would fall right through your fingers like sand. Now, Christianity, I think, uniquely conceives of this problem by recognizing two important beliefs. First, man's wretchedness, and second, God's hiddenness. To contrast this, the worldly, tyrannical religion of today either denies just one of those beliefs or denies both altogether, although typically it denies both. So, for example, in failing to acknowledge their own wretchedness and corruption, such religious types have become hindered from further obtaining a knowledge of God, since only the pure of heart shall see God, as Matthew 5 reveals. And as such, an idol of God will then stand upon the throne of one's pastoral imagination. One can strike the rock with the staff, but they bear no water. They acknowledge godly things, but they deny their power. They protect and secure investments, only to have them buried out in the field. Such a religious type ought not to invoke our pity, but indeed, as Pascal said, our anger, since such religious attitudes cheapen and make a mockery of the things of God. Such persons even profess that all of their work is for the sake of shaping and building the church, where it is actually instead directed towards shaping a public or shaping a culture, and not upbuilding or edifying real individuals. Thus, their productions are what Soren Kierkegaard called an all-embracing something, which is a nothing, a mirage, And so, it is no wonder that all of the chatter within Christendom today as to deconstruction and church corruption are much ado about nothing. Don't mistake me here, of course. There is indeed corruption and wretchedness relative to man's nature, as was been said before. But that is to say, moreover, that eternal truth is not something concerned with such phantoms of thought, not with smoking mirrors, fleeting mirages, illusions, nor is it concerned with parlor tricks. The threshold of existence starts at the door of the manger, with God himself wrapped in rags. And that is precisely where all of our inquiries of religion must begin and end, with such a holy abasement of ourselves, in lowliness and humility, to approach true religion as a friend and not as a traitor or as an enemy instead.